The sun was just beginning to peek over the ocean at Harbor Cove when the front gate of my house rumbled as if fate itself were knocking. Outside, a white van, 2 men wearing work gloves, and standing in front of it all, Brittany, my daughter-in-law. She wore a smile as polished as her silk blouse and held a key in her hand that shined brighter than it had any right to. "I'm here to recover my home," she told the security guard, who looked confused. He turned toward me, seeking orders. I simply breathed, set my cup of tea on the table, and murmured, "Let her in. She doesn't know what awaits her inside." My name is Eleanor Vance. I am 69 years old, and this is the story of how a woman learns that calm can be stronger than any lawyer with a briefcase. That morning, the north wind blew with that mixture of salt and melancholy that only exists on the coast of Maine. The seagulls cried out from a distance as if warning that something was about to break. I was on my terrace wrapped in my cashmere shawl with my cup of chamomile when James, the head of security, knocked hurriedly. "Mrs. Vance, excuse me for waking you, but Mrs. Brittany is outside," he stammered. "She says she comes with your son's permission, with papers, and that the house is hers." I looked at the sea for a moment before responding. In the water, everything seems to move slowly, but the tides always arrive. "Open the gate, James," I told him. "Let her in." I saw him swallow hard. He thought I had gone crazy, but no. When one has lived long enough, one learns that there are battles that are only won by letting the enemy get just close enough. Brittany entered with a firm step. She wore oversized sunglasses, carried a burgundy folder, and wore expensive perfume, the kind that leaves a long trail and an even larger void. "Good morning, Eleanor," she greeted me with a courtesy that cut through the air. "I'm just here to occupy what belongs to me." Michael couldn't come. He says he doesn't want any trouble. Michael, my son, my only son. The same one I carried amidst the smell of wood and sawdust when his father, Henry, was still working in his carpentry shop. The same one who, when he had a fever, would fall asleep holding on to my braids. I took another sip of tea before answering. "Of course, Brittany. Come in, my child. As you say, you're home." Her eyes lit up, but not with joy. It was something else, a mixture of anticipated victory and poorly disguised fear. The 2 men accompanying her unloaded boxes from the vehicle and waited for instructions. "We're going to move only the essentials," she ordered. I sat in the armchair facing the bay window. The sea remained there, unperturbed. "Do you want some fresh coffee?" I offered. "No thanks. I don't take sugar," she replied without looking at me. I laughed inside. There are people who believe sugar ages them, when what truly rots them is arrogance. She opened the folder and placed it on the glass table with theatrical care. "I came to notify you out of courtesy, Eleanor. Michael and I updated the will. I have the power of attorney here. It's so you don't have to worry about anything if you happen to forget certain things." I looked up. "Forget?" I asked in a calm voice. "Don't misunderstand me. We are only thinking of your well-being." The well-being. That word used by wolves when they already smell blood. I observed her in silence. Her manicured hands were impeccable, but her pulse was trembling. That minimal vibration that is only noticeable when one has already seen too many well-made lies. "Brittany, tell me one thing," I said slowly. "If this home is yours, why do you tremble when you put the folder on the table?" She didn't answer. She limited herself to taking a sip of the water James had brought. The men behind her waited, restless for orders. "Start," she said finally. The first one lifted a framed picture of my husband, Henry. The second approached the china cabinet where I keep the porcelain cups my mother brought from Boston more than half a century ago. "Careful," I whispered. "That has more years on it than you do." Brittany pursed her lips. "Don't worry, Mom Eleanor. Soon everything will be in order." Order. Another dangerous word. I nodded with that serenity that so disconcerts the guilty. "Yes, soon." The clock struck 6:15 when the sun began to color the sea. The light entered through the large window and bathed the living room as if blessing the furniture, the photographs, the scars of time. I stood up and walked slowly toward the study. On the way, I touched the frame of a photo of Michael as a child with his blue kite. The air smelled of the past and of warning. From the hallway, I heard Brittany's voice, a little more nervous now. "Careful with that box, don't scratch it. That box." My cedarwood box with the gold lock. I went back to the living room. "Do you know what's inside there, Brittany?" I asked. "Old papers, I suppose?" "Ah," I replied, smiling. "Then suppose carefully, because inside that box was everything she didn't imagine. The real papers, the authentic documents, the silent witnesses of my sanity." The sea slammed a wave against the seawall, strong, dry, as if applauding. Brittany looked at me, perhaps waiting for me to break, but I don't break easily. I learned that silence can be more lethal than a scream. I turned my back to her and returned to my chair. "Go on, child. Do what you have to do." And in that moment, I knew the story had just begun, that smile of hers was the beginning of her ruin, and that the home she claimed to be coming to recover had actually never been hers. Because a home isn't one with keys or signatures, it is one with soul. And Brittany pawned hers long ago for ambition. When a story is told, it is best to return to where it truly began to beat. Mine didn't start with a smile and a key, nor with a gate opening at dawn. It started in Portland, in a house with white clapboard walls and hardwood floors, in a kitchen that smelled of nutmeg, toasted rye, and coffee with cinnamon. There I learned the secret language of things, that of wood, of money counted with patience, of well-made bedsheets that resist the passing of years. There, next to a man who is no longer here and a boy who grew up too fast, I laid the first stone of what Brittany now dared to call her home. Henry, my husband, worked mahogany and oak like someone praying slow, respectful, with a cathedral silence. In the workshop, the sawdust clung to his skin as if the tree sought to stay with him a little longer. I learned to recognize good furniture by the music, the slight knock of knuckles that sounds hollow when the board is bad, the deep, serene sound when the wood is noble. "Don't let yourself be fooled by the shine," he used to tell me. "The truth is on the inside." He taught me that, and the world took it upon itself to confirm it later. While Henry carved, I ran the numbers. As a bookkeeper for 28 years at a private school, I learned to read not only figures but intentions. Bank statements speak, signatures say more than their owners believe. Every paycheck, a portion for groceries, another for the boys' tuition, and another for a savings book with the blue ink of the banks. Life arms you with matches. One learns when to light them and when to save them for the long night. Over time, we bought our small house in Portland. We paid for it in installments that seemed like a festive way of the cross. Each payment was a shared meal, an almost there that tastes of humble victory. Years later, when Henry left as those who don't want you to suffer go, quickly and in silence my pension arrived. Then I gave myself a stubborn gift, this house in Harbor Cove, not luxury, but refuge, a place to hear the waves and recognize myself when the city made me feel like a stranger. Michael, my son, grew up with the sound of the planer and planks stacked in the yard. He was noble, with serious eyes. When he fell in love with Brittany, I saw him shine like a child with a new bicycle. She entered my house with pastries and soft compliments. "Mom Eleanor, it smells so nice here." "Mom Eleanor, what a precious view." The first weeks she spoke softly, like someone who doesn't want to startle a hummingbird. She hugged me with prudence, brought flowers at odd times. She was efficient in the invisible. She occupied space without asking for permission. And yet, no one noticed the displacement. The first red flags weren't screams, they were sweet words. "Mom, Brittany says it would be better if you let us know before coming over." "Mom, Brittany thinks you should rest more rather than managing 2 houses. It's a lot at your age." At your age. A phrase delicate as a steak knife. I answered with short smiles, the kind that don't show teeth. I learned that there are battles won by saving one's saliva. One Sunday in April, I invited her to breakfast for Eggs Benedict. While we were slicing fruit, she left her cell phone face down on the tablecloth. It wasn't the gesture we all do it was the calculated speed with which she flipped it over when it rang. A glint of metal in her eyes. That glint one sees in those who look at price tags before touching the fabric. "I work in digital marketing," she told me. "I have very important clients." I didn't deny or affirm anything. One recognizes sellers of chimeras because they walk on air and hardly tire of their own echo. 6 months into the marriage, Michael stopped telling me his things. Not because he lacked love, but because he lacked the space to hear himself. When I called him, he spoke in plural. "We think. We are looking into. We believe." I don't blame the plural. I blame the voice that dictated it. Then came a dinner at the home of some of Brittany's relatives in the city, a high-end apartment in Boston that always seemed like a stage where the wine glasses shined brighter than the gazes. The wine flowed, and the conversations were obstacle courses. Who says the most expensive word first? At the table, Brittany placed her hand on mine with the tenderness of a schoolteacher. Mom, Eleanor, have you thought about simplifying? Sometimes property paperwork becomes hell for someone of your age. Someone said legal guardian, and another, in a suit that was too perfect, suggested a general power of attorney. The tablecloth was impeccable. The ambush was too. I smiled. I ordered sparkling water. I mentally noted 3 names and 2 words: urgency and haste. Haste is the favorite alibi of abuse. Back in Maine, I opened a new leather-bound journal, burgundy in color. I wrote in large letters, Brittany. Under the name, I made columns. Things she says, things she does, things she avoids. It isn't paranoia, it's accounting of the soul. He who doesn't keep accounts of small damages wakes up bankrupt of heart. That same Monday, I called Attorney Patterson, an old friend of Henry's. I want to review my trust, I told him, with a magnifying glass. He came to the house with his briefcase and his generous way of explaining the difficult. It stands solid, Eleanor, he assured me, but we can reinforce the clauses on non-transferability, limits on powers of attorney, a trusted executor, and one other thing. Document everything. People who come with smiles and papers usually slip when faced with evidence. I listened. I bought discreet cameras not to catch, but to remember. I made certified copies that I kept in different places. The cedar box, a kitchen drawer, no one looks for the truth among spoons, and a sealed folder at my friend Louise's house. Then I called Dr. Isabel Carter, an internist with warm hands and eyes that don't accuse. I want a complete cognitive evaluation, I asked her. She put me through tests that seemed like games, remembering words, drawing a clock, counting backward. I laughed at myself and also cried a little when she said, normal function, judgment intact, orientation perfect. I didn't cry from fear. I cried for the anticipated humiliation they wanted to plant in me. 15 days later, Brittany arrived with a man in a blue tie. Attorney Montgomery, she introduced. They brought a wine-colored folder and urgency in their steps. It's a simple general power of attorney, he said, so you don't have to struggle. Here, we added a minimal update to the will. Routine things. Routine dangers are the most lethal. I asked for his bar association card. He showed it without hesitation. I took a photo of it. If everything is so in order, I said, you don't mind if we review it with our estate attorney, right? They looked at each other without wanting to look at each other. Of course, she answered, but it's urgent. Urgent. The word hunger uses when it learns to wear high heels. They left. I closed the door, leaned my back against it, and felt the house like a living animal, tense, alert. I put water on to heat, opened the burgundy journal, and wrote, today they started. The sea at Harbor Cove was rough, and yet it gave me peace. The waves repeated their catechism, insist, insist, insist. I thought of my mother embroidering linen tablecloths, small stitch, long patience. Do it right, and it won't come undone with the first pull. I don't know if life is a hammock or a tightrope. I know that Maine taught me to sway without falling. That night, before sleeping, I rested my hand on the cedar box with the gold lock. The truth is inside, Henry whispered to me from some corner, where wood and love do not rot. And I slept with the certainty that when they tried to open that box, they wouldn't find what they were looking for, but what I had decided they would see. The afternoon, Brittany returned to knock on my door. The sky over Harbor Cove was the color of iron. The clouds hung so heavy that the pine trees seemed tired. I knew she would return. People who lie with such effort can never stand the silence. They need to hear their own story repeated by others to believe it. She arrived alone this time, without the men in gloves. She wore a discreet beige dress and a large handbag where the leather creaked to the rhythm of her anxiety. I don't want to argue, she told me before sitting down. I didn't offer her coffee. The air smelled of humidity, of contained storm, and of treason in repose. I come in peace. Mrs. Eleanor, she started. Michael is worried. He says you've been acting differently, that maybe you need help. I knew the word help was a bullet wrapped in velvet. Help, I repeated. Why don't you ask your lawyer with the blue tie? He seems to know a lot about my health. She tensed. Her smile was a patch that covered nothing. It wasn't necessary to call Attorney Patterson. All this could be resolved as a family. Family, Brittany, isn't resolved with signatures. It is maintained with respect. She opened her bag, took out some new papers, freshly printed. I just want to update a document, she said. Correct an error in the previous will. Look, it's for your own good. I observed the still fresh ink and the logo of a non-existent notary. I recognized the address, an empty office in the business district that had closed months ago due to fraud. And this attorney? I asked. Is he trustworthy? A friend recommended him to me. Ah, yes. The friends who recommend ghost lawyers are always the best. I looked straight at her. In that instant, I understood she had crossed the line separating boldness from desperation. She didn't just want the house. She needed to beat me, to win the game she had invented. Brittany, I said softly, I'm going to give you an opportunity. You can walk out that door and keep living with your clean conscience. But if you sign that paper here in front of me, you are going to lose much more than this house. Her lips trembled barely. She feigned indignation. Are you threatening me? She said. No, child. I am warning you. Warnings are not threats. They are gifts that life gives on time. She put the papers away, stood up, and before leaving, threw her sentence at me. We'll see who is right when the judge reads your diagnosis. There I knew she would play her dirtiest card, dementia. It was predictable. Hungry wolves always bite from the same side. That night, while the rain fell as if the sky wanted to clean something it couldn't name, I opened the wooden box. Inside, the medical report, the cognitive evaluation, the certified copies of the trust, and a sealed envelope with a handwritten name, State District Attorney's Office, Elder Fraud Division. I lit a candle. The wax dripped slow, patient. I thought of Henry, of his way of saying that wood warps if you don't let it breathe. I also needed air. 2 days later, Michael came to see me. He arrived alone, with a tired voice and dark circles under his eyes like someone who sleeps with doubts. Mom, Brittany told me you insulted her, he said without looking at me. She says you threatened her, that you don't want to sign the papers out of fear. Fear of what, son? Of losing everything? I took a deep breath. Son, he who acts out of fear has already lost the most important thing, serenity. I took out a copy of the medical evaluation and put it in front of him. Read it. Date, signature, stamps. I am better in the head than the majority of the people surrounding you. He read in silence. Then he looked up. I don't understand anything, Mom. She told me that you, I know. Brittany told you many things. I approached him, took his hand. Michael, listen to me well. I am not asking you to choose between her and me. I am asking you to choose the truth. He left without answering. Sometimes love needs silence to understand that it is being used. That same night, James notified me that someone had tried to enter the back garden. Nothing was stolen. They only forced the study door. I didn't report it. I preferred to observe. The next day, I found an envelope in the mailbox with a copy of the updated will and a note, last opportunity to sign. I smiled. It was no longer time for warnings. It was time to act. I went to Attorney Patterson. I told him everything with the calm of a surgeon. He listened, took notes, reviewed dates, stamps, and forged documents. This isn't just fraud, he said. It's identity theft, forgery, and attempted larceny. If you are willing, let's prepare everything. I returned home and prayed, not asking for justice, but for wisdom not to lose my compassion, because when they want to rob you, the worst theft would be to leave you without a heart. While the ocean slapped softly against the wall, I promised myself that the next time Brittany crossed my door, she would be the guest, but I would control the scene. And so began the trap. The day dawned with a dry breeze, the kind that stirs up dust and memories at the same time. On the horizon, the sea was smooth as a mirror. The seagulls weren't crying. The air had that calm before the thunder. I got up early with my intuition awake. When the soul is trained, it senses danger before it knocks on the door. At 9 o'clock sharp, James, the head of security, announced over the intercom, Mrs. Vance, a gentleman is here. He says he comes on behalf of your daughter-in-law. He brings documents to sign. I breathed deep. I had expected it. The trap was set, but it wasn't mine. Let him in, James, I said, but stay with him the entire time. Attorney Montgomery entered, the same one with the blue tie. This time he carried a new briefcase, a gold watch, and a rehearsed smile. Behind him, Brittany appeared as if she were his legal shadow, wrapped in expensive perfume and borrowed confidence. "Good morning, Mrs. Vance," the lawyer greeted. "We've come to conclude a small pending formality." "A formality," I repeated, raising an eyebrow. What a flexible word. "Yes, ma'am. It is about formalizing a power of attorney to streamline administrative management. Nothing complicated." James, who remained by the door, cleared his throat. "Do you want me to notify Attorney Patterson, Mrs. Vance?" he asked. Brittany stepped forward with a sweet but cutting tone. "That's not necessary, James. Attorney Patterson is very busy. This is just a detail." I smiled without moving a muscle more than necessary. "Ah, child, details are what build the best-laid traps." The lawyer opened the folder. Inside was a document with new stamps and an additional page that didn't belong to the usual notary format. I recognized the difference instantly. The left margin was narrower, the numbering misaligned. I had reviewed hundreds of contracts in my life. There is no forgery that can hide its clumsiness entirely. "May I see your Bar Association card, counselor?" I asked. "Of course," he answered with certainty, showing it. I took out my phone and took a photo of it without hiding it. You know, for my files. At this age one forgets little, but keeps much. The man swallowed hard. Brittany looked at him sideways. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said, "don't make this more difficult. Michael asked me to help you. He only wants to protect you." "Protect me from what, Brittany? From the sea air or from you?" She smiled. That smile, the same one she wore the day she arrived with the key. "From yourself, perhaps. Years weigh heavy, and we can all make mistakes." The lawyer intervened with a voice that wanted to sound paternal. "Mrs. Vance, sign it. And save yourself problems." Then I saw it clearly. It wasn't just an attempt at fraud, it was a staged performance. They wanted me to react, to lose my composure, so they could scream, "Look, she's confused, she's agitated." But I wasn't going to gift them that satisfaction. I stood up slowly, holding the document between my fingers. "You know, counselor," I said, "in New England, when an older woman offers you coffee before signing something, it is wise to accept it. It is a courtesy and a warning." I went to the kitchen. While the water boiled, I pressed the button on the small recorder I had hidden under the tablecloth. Every word, every pause, every sigh was being recorded. I returned with 3 cups. Brittany didn't touch hers. Montgomery drank without looking at me, nervous. "It has a good flavor," he said. "Of course," I replied. "It's fresh brewed, like contracts that are cooked properly." Then I let the blow fall with surgical softness. "By the way, yesterday I was at the district attorney's office. I presented a copy of this fake power of attorney. They said they would investigate it. They asked me for more names. I gave them yours." The silence that followed was long and thick. Brittany went pale. The lawyer left his cup half full. "I don't understand," he murmured. "I don't either," I answered. "But they do. And they have recordings." The man stood up abruptly, gathered the folder. "We will return with the correct document." "I don't doubt it," I responded. "But it will be with a court order." Brittany approached me with glassy eyes. "You can't do this to me. I'm not doing it to you, child. Your ambition is doing it to you." She left without saying goodbye, leaving an aroma of expensive perfume mixed with fear. When the door closed, I felt something inside me that wasn't triumph, but sadness. I had raised my son to love unconditionally, and now his wife was drowning in the same sea that I had taught him to contemplate. That night, Attorney Patterson came to the house, reviewed the recordings, and nodded with a serious gesture. "This is gold," he said. "But don't present it yet. Let them sink a little further." "And if they try something worse?" I asked. "Then we act, but with complete proof." "You don't need to shout. The sea doesn't shout, Eleanor. And look how it wears down the stones." I stayed up thinking about that, about the patience of the sea, about the years that polish fury until leaving it smooth. I understood that I shouldn't rush. Other people's pride collapses only when it has nothing to hold on to. Before sleeping, I opened my burgundy journal. I wrote a single sentence. Today the trap turned around. The hunter looked in the mirror and didn't like what he saw. And I put away the pen with a quiet smile. Because when a woman of my age learns to use her calm as a weapon, nothing can scare her anymore. A week after that visit, the whole town seemed to be observing without looking. In the markets, the vendors whispered. They say Mrs. Vance's daughter-in-law is running around with lawyers, that she wants to get her out of her house. I pretended not to listen, but rumors are like dust. They slip through the cracks even if one closes all the windows. Michael didn't come, not a call nor a message. The silence of a son weighs more than any storm. But I didn't cry. Tears are useless when dignity must be upheld. Instead, I ironed my tablecloths, watered the hydrangeas, and every night reviewed the documents, the recordings, the notary stamps. I wanted the truth to be as clean as my table if the day of judgment arrived. Attorney Patterson visited me frequently. He brought his briefcase full of codes and patience. They are going to try to cite you as incapacitated, he warned me. They will allege that you signed documents without understanding them. And you have my medical evaluation, I responded. Yes, but it's not enough. We will need witnesses. I have them, I told him. James, Dr. Carter, my friend Louise, and the sea if necessary. It has seen everything. The lawyer smiled with that tenderness that only good men who have seen too many injustices have. Then, Eleanor, prepare yourself. More blows will come, but none will knock you down. Days passed and the judicial summons arrived. Brittany had filed a guardianship petition. She asked that I be declared incapable of administering my assets. She alleged progressive cognitive deterioration. The complaint was a portrait of fantasy. It said I confused dates, forgot to turn off the stove, talked to myself. I laughed reading it. Of course I talked to myself, I thought. Solitude is the only honest conversation left to a woman when everyone else lies. The day of the hearing, I dressed in my dark blue shawl, the one I wore to Henry's funeral. Not for mourning, but for respect. Brittany arrived in white, as if attending her own wedding to the lie. Michael walked behind, head down. He didn't look at money. The judge, a young man with a tired face, began the session. Mrs. Eleanor Vance, do you recognize the documents your daughter-in-law presents as evidence? I looked up and answered slowly. I recognize the fake stamps, the poorly copied signatures, and the twisted intentions. Yes, Your Honor, I recognize them. A murmur ran through the room. Brittany pressed her lips together. Attorney Montgomery assures that you granted general power of attorney before him, the judge continued. May I ask a question, Your Honor? I asked. Go ahead. Have you verified Attorney Montgomery's standing with the State Bar Association? The judge arched his eyebrows. I haven't done so yet. Do it, I said. His license was revoked 3 years ago for document falsification. I have a copy of the record. The judge took the paper that Patterson handed him and reviewed it in silence. Then he looked up seriously, calculating every word. This changes many things. Brittany paled. She tried to speak, but the judge raised his hand. Silence, ma'am. Patterson then presented the recordings. My voice offering coffee resonated in the room, Montgomery's hurried voice, and Brittany's, saying, Michael asked me to help him. Then the moment where I revealed I had gone to the district attorney. The judge listened without interrupting. When it ended, he leaned back in his seat and exhaled. The evidence is overwhelming. This court cannot declare incapacitated a woman who has demonstrated more lucidity than the 3 people present here, he sentenced. Petition denied. I didn't smile. I only breathed. The air tasted of iron like the first day. Brittany lowered her head. Michael finally looked at me with a mixture of shame and relief. Mom, he whispered. Shh, I told him. Don't say anything. Words weigh more after the damage. The judge ordered a criminal investigation against Montgomery for fraud and forgery. Brittany left before everyone with quick steps and glassy eyes. I didn't stop her. There are defeats that are best left to mature alone. When it was all over, Patterson took me by the arm. Congratulations, Eleanor. You've won. No, counselor, I replied. I only survived. Winning would be not having to fight. That night at home, the sea was furious. The waves pounded against the wall as if applauding a sad spectacle. I poured myself a cup of fresh coffee and looked at the reflection of the water. I thought of Brittany, of her youth wasted on the shine of her ambition. I also thought of Michael, trapped between two distinct loves, the one born of my womb and the one he chose with his eyes closed. I don't know if the judge felt compassion or respect, but upon leaving he shook my hand and said, "I wish my mother had your strength." That sentence was the only prize I needed. In the following days, neighbors came with silly excuses, a recipe, a doctor recommendation, a greeting, but they all wanted the same thing, to hear the story. I told it to them without embellishments, with the serenity of someone who no longer seeks revenge, only learning. "And don't you hold a grudge, Mrs. Vance?" one asked. "No, dear. A grudge is a luxury for those who have time. At my age, one only keeps space for air and forgiveness." I kept all the documents in their box, not to hide them, but to remind myself that memory is also a form of defense. Before sleeping, I opened my burgundy journal and wrote, "Today silence fell, but not on me." It fell on those who confused my calm with weakness. Then I turned off the light, and for the first time in many months, I slept without fear of footsteps in the early morning. The following dawn was different. The sea looked clearer, almost shy, as if it also needed to rest after so many days of storm. The air brought the smell of fresh bread from the bakery on the corner, and the hydrangeas I planted with Henry were blooming again, stubborn and cheerful. I poured my chamomile tea and thought, calm weighs less when the truth has already been told. Mid-morning, Michael appeared. He didn't ring the doorbell. He walked slowly with his gaze low, like a child returning after breaking something important. He wore the same blue shirt he wore when he graduated from college, but now it fit him loosely. "Regret slims you down more than any diet. Can I come in, Mom?" he asked from the door. "You have always been able to, son," I replied. "The problem is that sometimes you don't know whose house you are entering." He entered without saying anything. The sound of his steps on the hardwood floor reminded me of his first steps, those he took wobbling between his father's workshop and my arms. Sometimes time seems only a repetition with different clothes. We sat face to face, the ocean in the background. He breathed deep. "I don't know where to start," he said. "At the beginning, which is how everything worthwhile starts," I answered. He lowered his head. "Brittany left. She packed last night. She said I betrayed her by not defending her, but..." He fell silent a second, but I couldn't keep sustaining a lie. I nodded slowly. "I don't blame you, son. One doesn't always see the poison when it comes in a pretty glass. I just wanted to do the right thing," he whispered. "And now, do you know what the right thing is?" I asked. "I'm not sure. I only know I failed you." I stayed looking at his hands. They had the same marked veins as Henry's. "No, son. Failing would be not coming back. You came back. That is already much more than many men do when they make a mistake." He ran his hands over his face, trying to contain the tears. "Brittany said you were doing poorly, that you didn't remember things anymore, that you didn't know what you were doing." I believed her. "Of course," I replied. "Love is sometimes deaf and blind. What is grave is when it also leaves us mute." There was a long silence. Only the murmur of the sea filled the house. "What is going to happen now?" he asked. "Nothing that we don't deserve," I said. "She will have to answer to the law, you to yourself, and I to my solitude." He stood up and approached the window. "I don't want you to be alone, Mom. I can stay a few days, fix the fence, paint the facade. You can stay, yes, but not out of pity. Here there are no debts to pay, only wounds to understand." He turned toward me. "Are you going to forgive me?" "I don't need to," I responded. "Forgiveness isn't asked for, it is demonstrated." His eyes filled with water. He walked to me, knelt, and rested his forehead on my knees. I stroked his hair, that hair that used to smell of coconut soap and now smelled of guilt. "Son, love isn't measured by the good days," I told him. "It is proven on the days when one stays even though it hurts." We stayed like that for a while, breathing the same salty air that watched me raise him. For the first time, I didn't feel rage. I felt a strange, deep peace, the kind that arrives when the soul understands that there is no perfect justice, but there is equilibrium. After a while, he got up. "I want to fix everything, Mom. I want us to be okay again." "It isn't about going back, Michael. It is about going on, but with eyes open." That afternoon I saw him walking through the garden, pruning the plants, cleaning the shingles fallen from the storm. He seemed like another man, or perhaps he was the same one, but without the weight of other people's lies. At night we prepared dinner together, fried fish, rice, and fresh biscuits. While we cooked, I told him anecdotes about his father. "Do you know what Henry used to say?" I asked. "That love without respect rots faster than wet wood." Michael nodded. He was always right. "Sometimes," I replied, smiling. "Not always, otherwise he would still be here." We laughed a little. For the first time, I felt the house breathe differently. It was no longer war territory, but a refuge that belonged to me again without fake keys or shadows. Before sleeping, he brought me a small box. I found it in Brittany's car. "It's yours, right?" I opened it. Inside were my antique rings and a folded wedding photo. She had kept them, who knows with what intention. I took them without rancor. "Thanks, son," I said. Sometimes what is stolen isn't what hurts the most. What hurts is that someone believed they could do it. That night, when Michael went to sleep in the guest room, I stayed alone on the terrace watching the sea. I thought of Brittany, of her smile, of her inevitable fall. I also thought of me, of the woman I was before learning to defend myself with calm. I opened my burgundy journal and wrote, "Today my son returned. He didn't ask for forgiveness, he brought silence. And that is enough. The sea is calm, and so am I." I closed the journal, blew out the candle, and smiled. Because sometimes the end of a war isn't victory, but the return of tenderness. 18 months have passed since that dawn when Brittany arrived with a smile and a key. Sometimes, when the sun sets over the water and paints the sand gold, I can still hear the sound of her voice saying, "I come to recover my home." And I think that in some way she was right. Only that home was never a house of cement nor a property title. It was something deeper. The place where one can sleep in peace without lies around. And that, Brittany could not steal. Today, life in Harbor Cove passes slowly, like a hammock rocking between the wind and time. I wake up with the birds, make my Earl Grey tea, and greet the sea like an old friend who knows my secrets. Sometimes neighbors visit me, other times law students who want to hear the case of the grandmother who defeated fraud with papers and patience. I serve them coffee and always tell them the same thing. I didn't defeat anyone. I just waited. And the truth, when you let it breathe, ends up finding its voice. Michael still comes on weekends. He brings sweet rolls, fixes the garden, and occasionally sits to talk with his father in front of the portrait in the workshop. He doesn't talk about Brittany anymore, although I know he remembers her. Sometimes I see sad eyes and put my hand on his shoulder. "Don't punish yourself, son. We all learn, although some pay a higher price." In the following months, the district attorney notified the final sentence. Brittany and Montgomery were convicted of forgery and fraud. Neither stepped in prison. Justice in America sometimes walks with a cane, but the truth remained, written on sealed paper, and that is enough. When they gave me the resolution, Attorney Patterson told me, "Mrs. Vance, if all women were like you, fake lawyers would be out of work." I laughed, but inside I felt something more akin to a farewell than a triumph. Justice doesn't always cure. It only prevents the wound from staying open. One day in March, I decided to do something with that calm that had saved me. I went to Portland and spoke with Dr. Isabel Carter. I proposed creating a small program for older women who live alone, a support group to teach them to protect their assets, their health, and their voice. We call it the Henry and Eleanor Foundation, in honor of the man who taught me that noble wood doesn't break, and the woman who learned that patience can also be a weapon. Every Thursday we meet on the terrace. There is coffee, laughter, and the occasional tear. Together we have learned that solitude is not a punishment if it is filled with purpose. One of them, Mrs. Tanya, said the other day, "I thought calm was resigning oneself, but you taught me that calm also fights, only it does so without shouting." And I laughed because, yes, calm fights, but in silence. Sometimes at sunset, I take out my burgundy journal. I hardly write warnings or names anymore. Now I note simple things. The smell of the sea, the color of the sky before it rains, the recipe for the best clam chowder. The last page has only one sentence written in black ink and without crossouts. Calm is not weakness. It is memory without rage and strength without noise. This morning, while the wind blew from the north, I thought of Brittany. I wondered if she ever understood what she lost. Maybe not. Maybe she keeps looking for new houses to fill voids that aren't made of bricks. I don't hate her. Hate is too expensive, and my soul has already learned to save. Before closing this chapter, I want to say something to whoever listens to me, be it from Boston, from Seattle, or from any corner where life has put you through a similar test. Don't believe that age makes you invisible. Experience is not a weight, it is a shield. And when they want to make you doubt your memory, remember this. He who keeps love, keeps lucidity. And if you ever feel the storm approaching, face it like the sea without fear, without haste, with the certainty that everything that tries to destroy you ends up polishing you. Thus ends my story, not with screams, nor revenge, nor fake keys. It ends with the sound of water, with my son preparing coffee, with the breeze entering through the window, and with my soul tranquil. Because yes, calm won, and that, in this noisy world, is already miracle enough.